There will never be a true answer to who killed WCW. You can ask anyone on the street who watched WCW back in the day and loved it for what it was. For some people, it was Eric Bischoff. For some people, it was Vince Russo. For some people, it was the higher ups at Turner Network. For some people, it was Hulk Hogan. You'll never get one answer. And hell, even with this documentary series on Who Killed WCW, I don't think we'll get a straight answer on who really killed WCW. But that being said, when this was announced, I did say, you know what? I'm going to review this, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm reviewing episode 1, but more likely, the next 3 episodes, I will be live streaming because that's what I'm used to. I haven't really recorded a video in God knows how long, but here we are. Bear with me here. Bear with me. What is going on, everyone? I am Steve. If you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Give this video a big old thumbs up. Share it through social media. Hit that bell notification. Be notified whenever this channel uploads a video or whenever we go live here on the Around the Point Network. So yesterday was the very first episode of Who Killed WCW on the Vice channel. It's the people who bring you Dark Side of the Ring and the production team of The Rock, 7 Buck Production. If you watched numerous WCW documentaries, like I mentioned before, and you watch this expecting something different, not really. Kind of the same. I'm not saying that last night's episode was bad. It was all right. I'll be honest. It was like an introduction of what WCW was. How in the early days of WCW, it was a Southern wrestling company, and how Eric Bischoff, who worked in the AWA, who wasn't getting paid by Vern Gagne, got a call from Larry Zbyszko to go work at WCW, and how Eric Bischoff climbed up the ranks, right? He went from like 3rd string announcer or commentator, whatever it was, to executive producer, to then senior vice president of WCW, and how he wanted to take the vision of WCW, which again, like I mentioned before, was this Southern regional wrestling company, and try to make it better under his vision. If you watch those early 90s WCW, you would see like, yeah, the buildings weren't really sold out. A lot of parts of the building were dark. It just had a different vibe. To then Eric Bischoff decide to take the show to a soundstage in Disney's MGM, put more light, rotate people, right? Because you were able to change audiences like that and have different episodes and on the same day recorded and have a different vibe. It was different. I remember as a kid watching those early episodes from the Disney MGM Grand on Saturday nights. I remember watching those. It's thinking, oh, it's different. You know, the ring is spinning. This is new. This is different. You also see in this documentary numerous faces, like I mentioned. You see Eric Bischoff, you see Medusa, Conan, Booker T, you see Kevin Nash, Bret Hart, Bill Goldberg, people that worked in WCW. And like I said before, you know, if you watched anything on the network / Peacock from back in the day, like the Monday Night Wars series from back in the day, if you watch the Rise and Fall of WCW, it's kind of similar. The people that worked there too, but you got it from the perspective in those series on the WWE side. You got it from the victor's perspective. Here is more like people that were there and saw everything, the ups and downs of WCW. But it feels like they can say it in the way they want to say it, not the way WWE wants them to say it, if that makes any sense. They even had Brad Siegel in this as well, who was the former president of Turner Network. And from the vibe that I got from him, he did not like wrestling. He did not get why Ted Turner would keep wrestling on this network. That's another thing, too. I learned Ted Turner was a mark. Plain and simple. He loved his wrestling. He wanted to have wrestling on his network. Ted Turner, who owned the Atlanta Braves. He owned the Atlanta Hawks. He had a, CNN and all that stuff. He wanted wrestling on his network, right? They even interviewed his son, Teddy Turner, something like that. I apologize if I butchered the name, but they interviewed his son as well. Ted Turner simply loved wrestling, plain and simple. He did not care if it was costing them money. He wanted to have wrestling. And again, a lot of people on the higher ups on Turner Network, they didn't want wrestling. But Ted Turner, his voice had weight to it. So it stayed, even if the other higher ups didn't want it. But it got to a point where, yeah, they were losing money every single year, to the point where Ted Turner was like, you know what? No more fucking around. If we don't turn this shit around, I'm pulling the plug finally. So you hear that story of Ted Turner talking to Eric Bischoff and asking Bischoff, what can they do to compete with WWE primetime? Because at this point, you had Monday Night Raw. And Eric Bischoff, in every single story about this, he was nervous on what to answer. So the first thing that came to his mind was, you got to go primetime, head to head. To which Ted Turner's like, all right, give Eric 2 hours on Monday nights. Because remember, back in those days, WCW was on Saturday night. Raw was on a Monday night. So you were never going to compete. And for Bischoff, he needed to do something different with WCW Monday Nitro. So there's the whole discussion that he took out a yellow board thing, a notebook, and he wrote side by side Raw and Nitro. Monday Night Raw, WWE, right? Yes, they admitted had a better production. The storylines were larger than life, but they had characters. WCW's characters were real, right? Real life personas and all that stuff, right? Based off reality. Monday Night Raw were not always live. There were some episodes that were taped. Nitro was live every single week. WWE Monday Night Raw catered to children. Eric Bischoff wanted WCW Monday Nitro to cater to 18 to adults. Monday Nitro happened, right? I believe September 4th, 1995. The first episode was from the Mall of America. Funny enough, I did review many years ago the first episode of Monday Nitro. I'll have that posted down below in the description box of this video, so you can watch that. And the fact that, they wanted to get these different shots of the people at the mall, walking around, but also, oh my God, there's a wrestling show here. There's a ring. That was creative as fuck. And from there, the rest was history, right? They brought in Hulk Hogan. And the moment you brought Hogan in those days, the shit just launched. His name carried weight as well. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, who back in the day were in WCW in the early 90s. Kevin Nash had different gimmicks, right? He was Oz, he was Vinny Vegas. Scott Hall was the Diamond Stud. And how they went to WWE, WWF, and became big names, right? Obviously, Scott Hall went on to become Razor Ramon. Kevin Nash went on to become Diesel. They became champions. They came back to WCW, and that whole invasion of the outsiders. And also at this point, too, Hulk Hogan was in a spot where people really weren't fucking with him anymore. The whole idea of, saying your prayers, eating your vitamins and all that stuff, people weren't messing with that no more. People just thought Hogan sucked. So he needed to change it up. But when it came to the third man, they needed to decide. Hogan wanted to be that person. So when the idea came for who would be the third person to join the outsiders, right? Hall and Nash, the original talk was Sting. But then Hogan said, oh, it has to be me. And it worked. Really, to be honest, Hogan being the third person made a whole lot of sense because Hogan came from that other side, from WWE, along with Nash and Hall. So at Bash at the Beach 96, Hogan turned on WCW with the third man. There was discussion that Kevin Sullivan had Hogan in his house, and they didn't get to the building literally after the first match just to make sure Hogan went through with this. Because Hulk Hogan had creative control in his contract. To the point where, put it this way, you can get to the building, look at the script, 30 minutes before your match, you can go, that don't work for me, brother. I want to change this. I want to change that. We saw the birth of the NWO. arguably till this very day, the biggest faction in the history of pro wrestling. It's crazy because for some people, it was either you were down with the NWO or you were down with D-Generation X. And you saw how that just changed everything for WCW. How they went from going back and forth in the ratings with WWE to just beating WWE Monday Night Raw in the ratings for 83 straight weeks. And they even showed that clip from like back in 1996, 97, it was, where they were in Disney MGM and they had a whole angle where they were in the back and they just started beating the hell out of mostly everyone from WCW. There was that whole clip of Kevin Nash throwing Rey Mysterio into the trailer like a long dart. All that. And again, that was cool to see back then. They talk about building up Sting for a year, right? Becoming the Crow, building up to that match between him and Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, for the WCW title. And there was also that controversy with the finish, how Hogan just didn't felt that Sting was ready. So they needed to change it and all that stuff. And how, again, people online were not happy with it. They were anticipating this big match for so long, right? To have that shit finish, it was just bad for them. But again, that's where they left off in this whole thing. There's 4 parts to this, so we're gonna get part 2, part 3, and part 4 in these next coming weeks. I thought overall for this first episode, again, wasn't bad. It just felt like an introduction to what WCW was, these characters, how Hogan joined WCW while he was filming Thunder in Paradise, the birth of the NWO, how the Outsiders got involved too, and all that stuff. If you have not watched the first episode of Who Killed WCW, it's on the Vice's YouTube channel. That's what they always do with Dark Side of the Ring too. Like they'll upload the first episode on their channel, and then you have to figure out a way to watch every single other episode. I think what also shocked people too with this is that it wasn't like Dark Side of the Ring, or like with Dark Side of the Ring, you would get like those reenactments, the narration, right? You didn't get that here. Remember, The Rock and his production team are the ones behind this. So you're not going to get the reenactment, the narration, which I kind of like from Dark Side of the Ring, but it is what it is. Give me your thoughts in the comment threads with your memories of WCW and all that fun stuff and your thoughts on the first episode. Likely episodes 2, 3, and 4, the reviews will be a live stream. I'm more used to live streaming. That's just me, of course. But let me know. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts on Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you kids want to call it. At Heel Steven, let me know. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up, all that fun stuff. All right. Thank you for watching. I'm out. Peace.